Life has a way of surprising us, often when we least expect it. We make plans, set goals, and move forward with confidence, only to find ourselves suddenly halted, sometimes violently, by events beyond our control. These moments can feel like the end of the road, like everything we worked for has crumbled beneath our feet. It is in these moments of setback that we are faced with a choice: to see these difficulties as insurmountable obstacles, or as the very foundation upon which we will build something new. When life pushes us down, it can feel like failure. Society often views setbacks as signs of weakness or defeat, but this perspective misses a fundamental truth about growth and transformation. Setbacks are not the end, they are the beginning. They force us to pause, to reconsider, and to rebuild. Just like a tree that loses its leaves in winter, the loss or hardship is not a sign that life has ended, but rather a necessary step before new growth can emerge. Imagine a seed buried in the soil, pushed down by the weight of the earth. It may feel crushed and confined, but that pressure is what encourages it to break open and sprout roots deep into the ground. Without that struggle, it could never grow into the strong, towering tree it is meant to be. In much the same way, our setbacks press us down, but they also prepare us to rise stronger and taller. This process is rarely easy. The moment we step back, we often experience fear, doubt, and uncertainty. We might question our worth, our future, or even our very identity, but the 2 steps back are not a punishment. They are an invitation to find deeper strength within ourselves. They compel us to discover reserves of courage and resilience that we might never have known existed. The dark times give us the opportunity to become more self-aware, more compassionate, and more determined. When we face adversity, we also learn the importance of patience and humility. It teaches us that progress is not always linear. Sometimes, moving forward requires first stepping back, reevaluating our direction, and gathering the resources, whether physical, emotional, or mental, we need to succeed. We begin to understand that growth happens beneath the surface, in silence and struggle, long before it becomes visible to the outside world. The setbacks can also shift our perspective about what success truly means. When everything seems to fall apart, we are forced to confront what really matters: our values, our passions, and our relationships. This process strips away the superficial layers of life and helps us reconnect with our authentic self. It reminds us that our worth is not defined by external achievements, but by our spirit, our perseverance, and our ability to keep moving forward despite challenges. Moreover, setbacks foster creativity and innovation. When the familiar path is blocked, we are compelled to think differently, to find new solutions and forge new paths. They encourage us to adapt, to be flexible, and to embrace change rather than fear it. This shift in mindset can open doors we never even knew existed and lead to opportunities far greater than those we had originally imagined. It's also important to recognize the community and support systems that often emerge during difficult times. When we experience setbacks, we learn the value of connection and empathy. We discover that we are not alone in our struggles and that others have faced similar battles. This shared experience can bring people together, inspire collective strength, and build a network of encouragement that fuels our comeback. As we move through these difficult phases, we develop resilience, the ability to bounce back stronger. This resilience is not about ignoring pain or pretending everything is fine. It's about acknowledging hardship, learning from it, and using it as fuel to propel us forward. It is the quiet strength that whispers, "I am not finished yet," when the world tells us to give up. In fact, many of the most inspiring stories in life and history are born from this very process: people who fell, who faced unimaginable challenges, and yet found a way to rise, rebuild, and transform their lives and the lives of others. Their journeys remind us that setbacks are not signs of failure but stepping stones to greatness. So when life pushes you down, remember that those 2 steps back are not the end of your story. They are the foundation on which you will build the rest of your life. Take that time to heal, to learn, and to gather strength. Trust that beneath the surface, your roots are growing deeper, preparing you to rise higher than ever before. Your setbacks are not your undoing, they are your becoming. And when you are ready, You will take 10 steps forward with a heart full of courage and a spirit unbreakable. That is the power of resilience, the beautiful truth that every ending is, in fact, a new beginning. Pain is one of the most universal experiences of being human, yet it remains one of the most misunderstood. We spend much of our lives trying to avoid it, to numb it, or to run away from it. But what if pain, rather than being something to fear or escape, is actually a profound teacher? What if it is through our deepest suffering that we learn the most about who we truly are and what we are capable of becoming? Pain comes in many forms: physical, emotional, mental, and even spiritual. It can strike suddenly or build slowly, a quiet ache that grows louder over time. When it arrives, it demands attention. It forces us to stop ignoring the cracks in our lives and to face truths we might otherwise avoid. And although pain is uncomfortable and unwelcome, it often brings clarity. In moments of pain, the illusions we cling to can fall away. The masks we wear to protect ourselves become too heavy to carry. We are left raw and vulnerable, exposed to the core of our being. It is in this stripped-down state that pain shows us who we really are beneath the surface. The fears we hide, the hopes we bury, the strength we never realized we possessed. Pain teaches us humility. It reminds us that we are not invincible, that life is fragile and unpredictable. But within that vulnerability lies a paradoxical kind of power, a power born from accepting our limitations and choosing to keep going anyway. Pain humbles us, yes, but it also opens the door to growth and transformation. It is through suffering that empathy is born. When we experience pain firsthand, we develop a deeper understanding of the struggles of others. Our own wounds become a bridge to compassion, connecting us to the shared human experience. We become less judgmental and more patient, more kind and more present for those who are hurting. Pain breaks down walls and builds connections. Pain also reveals our resilience. It tests our endurance and challenges us to rise above despair. Often, it is the pain itself that ignites a fire within, a determination to not let that pain define or defeat us. When we look back on difficult times, we see that those moments of suffering were also moments of awakening. We learn that resilience is not the absence of pain, but the choice to keep moving forward despite it. The lessons pain imparts are rarely comfortable or easy to accept. Sometimes pain forces us to let go of old dreams, toxic relationships, or limiting beliefs. It demands that we confront our own role in our suffering and take responsibility for our healing. This can be a painful and humbling process, but it is also deeply freeing. Pain pushes us to become more authentic, more honest with ourselves and others. Moreover, pain invites us to cultivate patience and self-care. It teaches us that healing is not instantaneous. It is a journey that requires gentleness, forgiveness, and time. Pain slows us down and asks us to listen to our bodies, our hearts, and our minds. It encourages us to nurture ourselves rather than pushing relentlessly forward without regard for our well-being. In the midst of pain, creativity often blooms. Many artists, writers, and creators have found their greatest inspiration in their darkest hours. Pain unlocks emotions and insights that might otherwise remain hidden, fueling expression and innovation. Through creativity, pain can be transformed from a source of suffering into a wellspring of beauty and meaning. Pain, too, challenges us to redefine our relationship with control. It teaches us that some things are beyond our influence, and that surrender is sometimes the bravest act of all. When we accept what we cannot change, we open ourselves to new possibilities and unexpected blessings. Pain can lead us to deeper faith, whether in ourselves, in others, or in a higher purpose. Most importantly, pain is a reminder that we are alive. It connects us to the fullness of the human experience, joy and sorrow, hope and despair, strength and vulnerability. Without pain, we might never fully appreciate the sweetness of healing, the lightness of happiness, or the power of love. In embracing pain as a teacher, We shift from seeing ourselves as victims to becoming students of life. We learn to listen to the messages embedded in our suffering and to allow those messages to guide us toward growth and transformation. Pain no longer feels like an enemy but becomes a guide, sometimes harsh but always honest. So when pain comes, and it will come, do not run from it or bury it deep inside. Welcome it as a teacher even when its lessons are difficult. Allow it to reveal your strength, your capacity for love, and your ability to rise. Through pain, you can discover a deeper, truer version of yourself, one that is courageous, compassionate, and whole. Pain in all its forms can be the catalyst that propels us toward healing and wholeness. It is not something to fear, but something to understand. By facing pain head-on, we unlock the door to transformation and ultimately to a life lived with greater meaning, purpose, and grace. When life deals us a heavy blow, the first reaction for many is to ask, "Why me?" This question echoes in the depths of our hearts, desperate for an explanation, for justice, for meaning. It's natural to seek a reason when things fall apart or when pain arrives uninvited. We want to make sense of the chaos, to understand why fate singled us out for hardship, or why circumstances seem so unfair. Yet, as understandable as this question is, it often traps us in a cycle of frustration, bitterness, and helplessness. The question, "Why me?" focuses on the past, a past that cannot be changed, rewritten, or undone. It lingers on what was lost, what went wrong, and who is to blame. It invites sorrow and self-pity, because it makes us feel like victims of a cruel and arbitrary fate. When we stay stuck in this mindset, we become prisoners of our pain, replaying the hurt over and over in our minds, unable to move forward. But what if, instead of asking "Why me?" we dared to ask a different question, "What now?" This simple shift changes everything. It moves us from a place of despair to a place of possibility. It pulls us out of the paralysis of regret and into the action of healing and growth. It acknowledges that while we cannot change what has happened, we do have control over what we do next. What now is a question of empowerment. It is an invitation to take responsibility for our lives, even in the face of adversity. It demands courage because it asks us to look at our pain and challenges squarely, without turning away or hiding. It says, "Yes, this happened. Now what will I do with it?" This question opens the door to resilience and transformation. Answering "What now?" requires honesty and reflection. It means recognizing our emotions, anger, sadness, fear, without letting them define us. It means acknowledging the reality of the situation, even when it's painful, and then choosing how to respond. This response might look different for everyone. For some, it may mean seeking help, leaning on others, or finding new sources of support. For others, it might mean setting new goals, learning new skills, or shifting priorities. The key is that the next step is proactive and intentional. What now also encourages us to embrace adaptability. Life rarely follows a straight path, and setbacks often force us to pivot or change course. Instead of resisting these changes, we learn to see them as opportunities to explore new directions or discover hidden strengths. Sometimes what feels like an end is actually a new beginning in disguise, waiting for us to take that first step forward. This question fosters hope because it reminds us that the future is still unwritten. No matter how dark the present moment may seem, there is always the potential for growth and renewal. By asking "What now?" we affirm that we are not defined by our suffering, but by our willingness to rise above it. We reclaim our agency and create space for healing, learning, and joy. In shifting from "Why me?" to "What now?" we also move from isolation to connection. When we dwell on why we are suffering, we often feel alone, as if no one else could understand our pain. But the moment we ask "What now?" we invite support, community, and shared humanity. We open ourselves to the possibility of receiving help and of offering help in return. We discover that many have walked similar paths and that we are not alone in our struggle. This shift also transforms the way we tell our story. Instead of a story of victimhood and despair, we begin to tell a story of resilience and courage. Our narrative changes from one of what happened to us to one of what we did next. How we took control, how we refused to be broken, how we chose to keep moving forward. This new story empowers us and inspires others who may be facing their own challenges. Moreover, the question, "What now?" encourages a mindset of growth. It invites us to see setbacks as lessons rather than failures. We begin to ask, "What can I learn from this experience? How can this challenge make me stronger or wiser?" This mindset fuels continuous improvement and opens doors to new possibilities that might have seemed unimaginable before. Of course, shifting from "why me" to "what now" is easier said than done. It requires practice, patience, and self-compassion. There will be days when the old question creeps back, when pain clouds our vision, and despair threatens to overwhelm. But each time we return to "what now?" we reaffirm our commitment to resilience and to living with purpose. This question is also a call to action in the present moment. It reminds us that healing and progress are made one step at a time. Sometimes the next step is small, getting out of bed, reaching out to a friend, writing down our thoughts. Other times it might be a bold leap toward a new opportunity or a profound change in perspective. Whatever the step, the important thing is that it moves us forward. By embracing "what now?" we reclaim our power and rewrite our futures. We transform pain into purpose, setbacks into comebacks, and endings into beginnings. This question becomes a beacon of light in the darkest times. Reminder that no matter what has happened, we have the strength to shape what comes next. In the end, the shift from "why me" to "what now?" is a journey from helplessness to hope, from victimhood to victory. It teaches us that while we cannot control everything that happens to us, we can control how we respond. And it is in this response that our true power lies. There are moments in life when words fail, when silence feels too heavy, and the emotions within us begin to overflow. Pain, confusion, fear, and even joy often build up inside, begging for release. In those moments, we might not know how to speak about what we're going through, but something deep within us still wants to be heard. This is where expression becomes our saving grace, not just in the form of words, but in movement, in color, in music, in creation. Expression, in its purest form, becomes healing. There is something sacred about letting what's inside of us find a way out. It doesn't have to be perfect, pretty, or polished. It just has to be real. When we create from a place of truth, when we paint, write, sing, dance, or speak without filters or fear, we begin to free ourselves. The pain that once felt unbearable slowly transforms into something we can hold, observe, and even understand. What once consumed us becomes something we can shape and move through. Expression does not require talent. It requires honesty. You do not need to be a great writer to write about your pain. You do not need to be a skilled artist to put your emotions on canvas. You just need to be willing to give your inner voice a chance to speak. So often we think that if our story doesn't sound beautiful, it's not worth sharing. But healing rarely comes from beauty. It comes from truth. And sometimes our truth is messy. It stumbles, it cries, it repeats itself, and that's okay. In fact, that's necessary, because healing isn't a straight line. It's more like a spiral, where we revisit old wounds from a new level of awareness. Each time we return to that place, we express it differently. And with each expression, we lighten the burden just a little more. When we express ourselves, we create distance between who we are and what we feel. We no longer are the pain. We have the pain. That small but powerful distinction allows us to breathe again. It reminds us that we are more than our suffering. We are more than our circumstances. We are creators, not just survivors. Expression also connects us with others. When we share our truth, whether in private or in public, it invites others to say, "Me too." It breaks the illusion of isolation. Our words, our art, our stories become bridges. They help someone else feel seen, understood, and less alone. That's the quiet magic of vulnerability. It doesn't just heal us, it often heals those who witness it, too. There is a reason we turn to music when we're heartbroken, or poetry when we're confused. There's a reason people fill journals when the world becomes too loud. These forms of expression don't fix everything, but they hold us steady. They give form to the formless and make space for what words alone cannot say. And sometimes, the act of expression is the only closure we'll ever get. There are wounds we carry that won't be acknowledged by those who caused them. There are apologies we will never receive, but through expression, we can still find release. We can still offer ourselves the compassion and attention we never got from others. We can write our way to forgiveness. We can paint our way to peace. Even in moments of joy, expression deepens our experience. It captures our gratitude, our awe, our celebration of being alive. And that, too, is healing. To honor not just the pain, but the beauty of life, even after everything we've been through. When we allow ourselves to express both the shadow and the light, we live more fully. We live more honestly. Expression is not about escaping reality. It's about facing it with courage. It's about saying, "This is what I'm feeling," even when the world tells you to stay silent. It's about giving shape to your soul's whisper when everything else feels loud and chaotic. So when the pain feels too big, or the joy feels too wide, or the silence feels too loud, create, write, speak, dance, draw, cry, laugh, let what's inside of you come out. Let it move, let it breathe. Because in that sacred space between emotion and expression, between what hurts and what heals, you will find yourself again. Not broken, but becoming. Not finished, but forming. Expression, in all its rawness, will remind you that you are alive, that your voice matters, and that healing is possible. Even if it comes one word, one brushstroke, or one note at a time. Failure. It's a word that often carries shame, disappointment, and a sense of finality. From a young age, we are taught to fear failure, to avoid it at all costs, as if it somehow defines our worth. We learn to associate failure with weakness, incompetence, or inadequacy. But the truth is, failure is not the end. In fact, failure is often the beginning of a deeper journey, one that leads us not to defeat, but to redirection. We don't always understand this while we're in the midst of it. When a dream slips through our fingers, when a door slams shut, or when we fall short despite our best efforts, it's easy to believe we've reached the end of the road, that the no we received means we are not good enough, that the mistake we made is irreparable, but in time we often come to see that failure didn't break us. It rerouted us. It took us off one path, yes, but it put us on another, often more meaningful one. Sometimes what we thought we wanted so badly was never truly meant for us, and the only way to discover that is through failure. It forces us to pause and reflect, to ask questions we might not otherwise consider. It gives us an opportunity to reconnect with what really matters, to assess our values, our intentions, and our desires. Without failure, we might continue chasing things that aren't aligned with our purpose, simply because they looked like success from the outside. Failure is a humbling experience, but it also deepens our character. It teaches us resilience, the kind of strength that doesn't come from always winning, but from standing up again after we've fallen. It builds a quiet confidence rooted not in perfection, but in persistence. Because every time we get back up, we prove to ourselves that we are stronger than we once believed, that our worth is not measured by flawless performance, but by our willingness to keep moving, to keep trying, to keep believing. It also makes us more empathetic. When we fail, we understand what it feels like to struggle. To doubt, to grieve, this understanding connects us to others in a powerful way. It allows us to offer support without judgment, to cheer for others' victories without envy, because we know what it's like to be on the other side. Failure softens us. It breaks down ego and pride and replaces them with compassion and humility. What's more, failure invites creativity. It pushes us to think differently, to find new solutions, and to reimagine possibilities. When the usual way doesn't work, we're forced to innovate. Many great breakthroughs, in art, in science, in personal growth, have come not in moments of success, but in the aftermath of failure, because that's when we stop playing it safe. That's when we dare to dream differently. There's a kind of beauty in letting go of the pressure to succeed perfectly. When we accept that failure is part of the process, we allow ourselves the freedom to take risks, to explore, to learn. We understand that failure isn't something to be ashamed of. It's something to learn from. It becomes a teacher, showing us what doesn't work, yes, but also revealing unexpected insights about who we are and what we truly want. And often, the greatest redirection lies in the stillness that follows a setback. In that quiet, when everything feels uncertain, we begin to listen more closely to our inner voice. We begin to see not just what went wrong, but what we might do next. Sometimes the most significant growth comes not when we reach the peak, but when we're forced to find a new path up the mountain altogether. Failure is not the end. It is a bend in the road, a detour that takes us off autopilot and invites us to look around, to see different scenery, to walk a path we never considered before, but one that might just lead us to something far richer than we had imagined. So the next time failure comes knocking, don't turn away in fear or shame. Welcome it, learn from it. Let it guide you, shape you, and redirect you. Because what feels like a setback today might be the very thing that prepares you for tomorrow's success. One that's more aligned, more authentic, and more powerful than anything you had planned. There's a quiet kind of strength in showing up just as you are, without masks, without filters, and without apology. In a world that constantly urges us to be more polished, more perfect, more put together, it takes immense courage to simply be real. But real is where our power lies. Real is where connection begins. Perfection may impress, but it is authenticity that inspires. Too often, we wait for the right time to show up. We wait until we feel confident, until our scars are healed, until our doubts are gone. We think we need to have it all figured out before we speak, before we create, before we try. But the truth is, that moment rarely comes. Life doesn't pause while we get ourselves perfectly ready. And if we keep waiting for perfect, we may never begin. Imperfection is not something to be ashamed of. It is something to be embraced. It is the evidence that we are human, that we are trying, that we are growing. Every stumble, every flaw, every crack in the surface reveals the story we've lived through. And stories are not powerful because they're neat and flawless. They are powerful because they are honest. We admire others not for their perfection, but for their vulnerability, for the way they keep showing up even when it's hard, for the way they carry their wounds with grace and still move forward. When someone chooses to be seen in their imperfection, it gives others permission to do the same. It says, you don't have to have it all together to be worthy. You are enough even now. There is beauty in the unfinished. There is magic in the raw and unfiltered. Think of the moments that have touched your heart most deeply. Chances are they weren't perfect performances or polished presentations. They were moments of truth. Someone sharing a real struggle, someone crying without hiding it, someone standing up not because they felt strong, but because they believed in something more important than fear. We've been conditioned to believe that strength looks like invincibility, but strength often looks like trembling hands doing the thing anyway. It looks like showing up to a room where you feel unsure and saying, "Here I am." It looks like raising your voice when it shakes. It looks like loving yourself even when your reflection doesn't match your expectations. The pressure to be perfect can be paralyzing. It tells us we have to fix everything before we start anything, but life is not a performance, it's a process. And showing up imperfectly is far more powerful than not showing up at all. Because when we show up, we create momentum, we grow, we learn, and most importantly, we remind ourselves that we are allowed to take up space, exactly as we are. You do not need to have the perfect words to speak your truth. You do not need to have the perfect body to love yourself. You do not need to be healed completely to help someone else. The world doesn't need your perfection. It needs your presence. It needs your heart. It needs your realness. Even our scars have a story to tell. They remind us of what we've survived, of the storms we've weathered. Hiding them doesn't make them disappear. It only keeps others from seeing the full truth of who we are. When we show our scars, we say, "This is what I've been through," and I'm still standing. That is not weakness. That is power. It is through imperfection that we relate. It is through authenticity that we connect. And it is through courage that we change, not just ourselves, but the world around us. Because every time you show up as you are, you make it safer for someone else to do the same. So don't wait to be flawless. Don't hold yourself back until you've got it all figured out. Come as you are, raw, real, uncertain, and human. Your voice matters now. Your presence matters now. Your story matters now. And remember, you are not meant to be perfect. You are meant to be real, and that is more than enough. So yes, life will sometimes push us 2 steps back. It will knock the wind out of us. It will test our patience, our strength, and our sense of purpose. But that is not where the story ends. Those steps back are not failures. They are foundations. They are pauses that prepare us. They are the stillness before a leap. Because when we refuse to give up, when we dare to rise, to express, to shift our mindset, to embrace our failures, and to show up in our beautiful imperfection, we don't just recover, we grow, we evolve. We move 10 steps forward. It's not about how many times you fall or how heavy the setbacks feel. It's about your willingness to rise again and again, even when the ground beneath you trembles. You may not know what lies ahead. You may not have all the answers, but you have the courage to keep moving, and that is enough. You are not broken. You are becoming, and every scar, every stumble, every moment of doubt is shaping a version of you that is stronger, wiser, and more powerful than before. So take those steps forward, not in fear but in faith, not because everything is perfect, but because you are ready, ready to live, ready to speak, ready to rise. Because even after the deepest fall, you still hold the pen. And your story, your beautiful, imperfect, courageous story, is far from over.